So it's officially February, which means that it's Nintendo's turn. We are now on that Nintendo Direct watch, and I do expect something to happen here in the coming weeks. But until then, we do have plenty of other things to talk about. Palworld continues to light the world on fire, and not only did they just give an interesting update, but so too did Xbox. It was just last week when I said that Xbox needs to capitalize on Palworld's success, and they are clearly listening. So we will get all of that, as well as an alleged PlayStation handheld that's in development right now. And no, I'm not talking about another remote play device. This is a legitimate handheld that plays games, yes, locally. Now, personally, I am a huge fan of the Vita. I have consistently said that it is one of my most cherished consoles of all time, so I am thrilled to talk about Sony's future in handheld gaming. Let's just go and jump right into things, though, starting off with this Palworld update. I mean, this game was blazing last week with 1 million more units sold seemingly every other hour, and the thing about those numbers was that it was just for Steam alone. Well, they finally gave us an update that includes Xbox as well, and check this out. Palworld has now officially reached 19 million units worldwide, 12 million on Steam, and then another 7 million on Xbox. Now, because it's available on Game Pass, not all of that is necessarily sold, but Xbox did come out with their own update as well, saying that this is now the best third-party launch ever for Game Pass. It's also the most played third-party day one launch for Xbox Cloud Gaming with Xbox Game Pass Ultimate. So, I mean, the success of this game, a game that seemingly came out of nowhere for so many people, is now really in that Pokemon range of success. I mean, everybody wants to compare it to Pokemon, so okay, you know what? Let's just go ahead and do that. Pokemon Scarlet and Violet has sold 23 million units, and now Palworld so far has reached 19 million players in just a few weeks' time. Now, to be fair, part of that is because of Game Pass. Again, not all of that is necessarily sold, but no matter how you slice it, Palworld is a phenomenon right now, and that's why I said last week that Xbox needs to capitalize on its success. And no, I was not saying that they need to acquire Pocket Pair. I'm not saying anything like that. A lot of people kind of jumped to that conclusion last week, but that's not what I said. What I meant by that is that they need to go full in on this game. Advertise it, bundle it, showcase it for Game Pass, whatever they can do to showcase this game, because you can't get this on the other consoles. This is a huge get for them. A lot of people, a lot of kids are searching how they can play this game, and right now, it's not available on PlayStation or Nintendo. Now, I assume that will change in the future. I don't think that this is going to be a permanent exclusive or anything like that. But for the time being, Xbox needs to take full advantage of its exclusivity, and clearly, that's exactly what they're doing. As I said, Xbox posted their own update on the situation, and they did say this. On Xbox's part, we're working with Pocket Pair to help provide support for Xbox versions of the game. We're providing support to enable dedicated servers, offering engineering resources to help with GPU and memory optimization, speeding up the process to make Palworld updates available for players, and working with the team to optimize the title for our platform. And that right there has been one of the big complaints with the Xbox version. Pocket Pair hasn't been able to update it quite as quick as they can with the Steam version, but based on what Xbox is saying here, they are trying to address that problem as well as give it dedicated servers. Xbox is trying to get closer to parity with that Steam version, and they're making a point to help out with Palworld, and that's really great to see. Not only does that benefit you, the player, they are making sure players have the best experience that they can have, but they're also showing initiative for the future of their platform. This is something that I think Xbox needed to do. They're not just going to let its exclusivity slip by. They obviously see its potential, and they're capitalizing on that. So, kudos to them. They're being smart here, and you know what? As a side note, I have to say this. There's been this just bizarre narrative that nobody was playing on Xbox because Pocket Pair was only showing the Steam numbers. That narrative was always beyond asinine. I mean, you give fanboys an inch, they're going to take a mile, but, with this official update here, everybody can now see that, yes, Xbox players are definitely playing Palworld. It's a huge success on PC, and it's also a huge success on Xbox, and that right there is exactly why Xbox is going out of their way to help out with this game. Okay, now we also have a really interesting PlayStation story that's catching a lot of attention right now. Allegedly, or according to Moore's Law's Dead, PlayStation and AMD are working on a handheld console that's early in development. More or less, basically what this says is that Sony and AMD are experimenting on a handheld console, but it's yet to fully get greenlit. So what that means is that if all of this is true, it's still years away if it even gets greenlit in the first place. So that might be a little deflating if you were hoping for something a little bit more immediate, but this is still a very interesting concept on paper. I mean, the first thing that you have to ask is how? How can Sony get back into the handheld market in a meaningful way? They already struggled with the PlayStation Vita because even though that was a great console from a technical point of view, I mean, I love mine personally and I still play it occasionally, but Sony's main problem was that they struggled developing games for two separate pieces of hardware. I mean, we can even really say the same thing when it comes to the PlayStation VR and the PlayStation 5. They do struggle with this because they only have so many resources. A lot of their resources are tied up with their home consoles. So that does make it difficult to support a completely separate platform. So theoretically, if they were to make a handheld, this is a problem that they would have to solve, and well, how do they do that? Well, according to this leak, this handheld kind of sounds like it'll be a device that utilizes the PlayStation 4 library and some PlayStation 5 games as well. It doesn't sound like this will support every single PlayStation 5 game as is, but it might be a console that utilizes digital games that you can play on the go. Now, that's not exactly a Vita 2 and maybe a little unfortunate for people who buys their games physically like myself, but it is still a rather interesting idea. The PlayStation 4 generation is filled to the brim with great games. I mean, you have Bloodborne, God of War, Gravity Rush, Uncharted, Shadow of the Colossus, Little Big Planet, The Last Guardian, Gran Turismo, and the list just kind of goes on and on and on. That is a great library of games, and you know, if you would like to play any of those games on a handheld platform, this new handheld that's allegedly in development might be an option in the future. I mean, okay, so if they go in this direction, it might be a niche device, but you can also say the same thing with the PlayStation Portal, and that didn't stop that from happening. And look at what's happening. The Portal is actually selling relatively well for them. So I think taking that idea and making it into a native experience, I think there would be an audience for something like that. Let's say you want to play PlayStation 5 and PlayStation 6 games on a handheld, though. This leak also claims that it's alternatively been suggested that this quote-unquote Vita 2 is in fact a part of the PlayStation 6 family and will be sold as a weaker alternative, specifically for the Japanese market, which, you know, does prefer handheld consoles. Now, if they could actually pull that off, that could be majorly successful, even if it's a weaker alternative. A lot of people do like to play their games on a handheld. Just look at the Switch as an example. And again, you also have to keep Japan in mind here. They majorly prefer handheld gaming. So for Japan alone, an idea like this does actually make sense on paper. My only thing about all of this, though, is that I don't know how realistic this actually sounds, just considering the power gap between home consoles and handhelds as they are today. I don't know how much PlayStation can actually downscale their future PS6 games to make something like that plausible for a handheld console. For that matter, the argument that the Xbox Series S is holding back gaming, that would also apply in a scenario like this, if not even more so, if Sony truly wants to launch a handheld as a part of the PS6 family. I mean, it's a really interesting idea on paper. A lot of people, again, do prefer to play their games on a handheld console. I personally play all of my Switch games in handheld mode. I rarely play that on a TV. I have a Steam Deck for PC games, and I also have a ROG Ally, which basically acts as a portable Xbox Game Pass machine. So yeah, I love handhelds, and a PS6 handheld-like companion is an interesting idea, or at least on paper. Again, I don't know how realistic it actually is. I mean, we're talking about a device that's still years away, and we do need to see all the advancements that portable consoles makes over that period of time. But let me know what you all think about all this. Do you like what you're hearing? Do you like the idea of a handheld that specifically focuses on PS4 games? And what about that PS6-like companion? Do you even think that's realistic in the first place? Let me hear your thoughts in the comments below. Now, we also have a pretty big Ubisoft report to talk about. This is coming from Insider Gaming, and there's really two different parts I want to talk about here. So let's just go and start off with Prince of Persia: The Lost Crown. The article says that in early January, Ubisoft released one of its highest-rated Metacritic games in the past decade, Prince of Persia: The Lost Crown. The game hit a height of 88 on the Nintendo Switch with its critic score and a 9.1 user score, leading many to believe that the game could already be in the running for several Game of the Year awards. Despite the impressive scores, though, the game has around 300,000 players at the time of writing, estimated $15 million in revenue. Now, I've seen a lot of people just kind of assume that this is bad, but I'm not really sure what people are expecting out of this game. At the end of the day, despite Prince of Persia maybe being one of the best Metroidvania games ever made, it really is that good, but it is a genre that isn't likely to sell 1 million+ copies in a 2-week period. I just don't think that that's realistic at all, especially at its price tag, which is $50 US. So I think fans need to kind of be patient with this one and see how it performs over an extended period of time. Let's see how it sells once it eventually gets ported over to Steam. You know, that's going to be a big help, especially with the Steam Deck. And also once it gets discounted. To me, though, I disagree that 300,000 units sold in just its first couple weeks is just completely bad. I just think that some people are maybe expecting a little too much and are just immediately jumping to conclusions a little bit early in this situation. Let's give it a little time and see what happens in the long run. Considering how good this game is, though, I do hope that it performs well over time. That way we can get more games like this from Ubisoft. Please, come on. And who knows, maybe even a sequel. The other part to this report, though, is in regards to their future lineup. It does sound like they have 2 big games planned for 2024, one being Star Wars Outlaws, which is currently being planned for the first half of 2024. Now, that is a little bit of a surprise. Previously, we had heard that it would be a second half release, but this report does say otherwise, and that would mean that we should get some kind of an announcement relatively soon. I'm not really sure where that would be. Maybe just a random announcement or maybe another Ubisoft Forward. They did previously say that the Beyond Good and Evil remaster is planned for early 2024, and we've yet to hear about its exact release date. So Ubisoft could have a few announcements planned relatively soon. Another game that they have planned for 2024, though, is Assassin's Creed Code Red. According to Insider Gaming, it's targeting a second half 2024 release, and if you're unaware, this is Assassin's Creed set in Japan. I mean, fans have been requesting this setting for really as long as I can remember, so this would be an incredibly exciting game if they do it justice. I mean, I guess we'll see about all of that soon enough. But the article continues on to say, in 2025 and 2026, expect a new mainline entry to Ghost Recon set during the fictional Neiman War, 2 new Far Cry titles including a multiplayer game, and a new mainline entry to Far Cry, 2 new Assassin's Creed games, and the already announced Splinter Cell remake. Beyond that, expect several new Assassin's Creed games, including an Assassin's Creed Black Flag remake currently known as Project Obsidian. So they do actually have some really exciting games in the pipeline right now. Now, they are relying a lot on the Assassin's Creed game, so that's going to kind of depend on if you like that franchise. But it's also nice to see that they are mixing in other IP as well. We are going to get the return for Splinter Cell. That is incredibly exciting. We're going to get a new Ghost Recon, hopefully a good one this time. And just last month, we also got Prince of Persia. So we'll see how all of this plays out for Ubisoft, but on paper, I'd say that there's a lot to be excited about. Anyways, though, that's going to be it for this episode. Let me hear your thoughts about that quote-unquote Vita 2 and also the Ubisoft pipeline. Do you like what you're hearing? But until next time, peace out.